Welcome back to another Roblox Studio tutorial. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make two different types of laser guns, one that damages and one that heals. Alright, so let me go ahead and show you the first one. This is going to do damage to any enemies or players that you hit it with. And the other one is going to heal, so whenever you hit a player that has damage, it's going to heal that player. So let's go ahead and damage one, and heal. Alright, so let's go ahead and dive in and see how we can do this in Roblox Studio. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we're going to do is get a gun. For this, you can either make your own gun or get one from the toolbox. If you're going to be getting one from the toolbox, just make sure you're under the model section and then search for the type of gun you want. Since we're making a laser gun, I just searched laser gun, and you have a couple different options to choose from. Once you find one that you like, maybe this red one here, you can click on it. It's going to ask you if you want to put this tool in the starter pack. You can go ahead and press yes. When it's in the starter pack, that means the player is going to start with it when they join into the game. Since we're going to be writing our own scripts for this gun, you can go ahead and delete all the scripts that are already there. So if you see any scripts, just go ahead and delete them. If you want to keep any of the sounds, that's fine, but I'm going to show you how to add your own later on. So for now, I'm just going to delete those. So basically now that I deleted all the scripts on the weapon, I just have a model that I can write my own script for. Once you have the gun that you want to use, we're going to be starting with a local script inside that gun. So go ahead and find the gun inside the starter pack. You're going to click on the plus sign and then click on local script. The first thing we're going to do inside this local script is create a variable for the gun. So we'll say local gun, and that's going to be equal to script.parent. The next thing we're going to do is make a variable for the replicated storage where we're going to store a remote event. The reason we have to use a remote event is because we're using a local script, but we want to actually damage the players on the server. So we're going to be connecting this local script to a server script with that remote event. So let's go ahead and make a variable for the replicated storage. We're going to say local, and then we're going to shorten it to rs. And that's going to be equal to game::getService. Inside the parentheses, we're going to put quotation marks and then replicated storage. The next variable will be for the remote event. So let's say local laser event. And that's going to be equal to rs::wait for child. Inside the parentheses, we're going to put the name of the remote event, and we're going to call that laser event. We haven't actually created this remote event yet, so let's go ahead and stop here and do that. So under the replicated storage, you're going to be adding a remote event. So just click on the plus sign, click on remote event, and then you're going to right click, press rename, and then you're going to change the remote event to laser event. So it should look like this here. After you do that, we can head back to the script. We want to fire the laser gun whenever the player clicks the mouse. To do that, we're going to say gun.equipped. So that's whenever the gun gets equipped. We're going to say :connect. Inside the parentheses, we're going to put function. Inside the parentheses next to function, we're going to put mouse. So that'll be the mouse object. Inside this function, we're going to say mouse dot button one down. So that's a left click. We're going to connect this with a function. And for now, just to test to see if it's working, let's go and say print. And then inside the parentheses, we'll put clicked. So here, all we're doing is to make sure whenever we click the mouse, we're getting this print message down in the output. Okay, so let's go ahead and test it. So under the View tab, go ahead and open up the output. And we're going to be checking down here. So let me go ahead and equip the gun. And you can see whenever I click, I get the message click down here. All right, so we're good to go. So let's go ahead and continue. Now that we saw what's working, we can go ahead and delete this print message. So what we want to do whenever a player clicks is we want to fire the remote event so that the server can pick it up. To do that, we're going to say laser event, :fire server. Inside the parentheses, we're going to pass a couple different things. We're going to pass the gun. We're going to pass the mouse's position. So we're going to say mouse.hit.p. We're also going to pass the type of shot this is going to be. So for right now, we're working on the laser that damages. So let's just go ahead and put that as a string. And there we go. So that's all we need to do on the local side for now. The next thing we're going to be doing is writing a script in the server script service. So go ahead and click on the plus sign and then add the script. Okay, so now that we're on the server script, the first thing we're going to do is make a variable for the replicated storage and the remote event. We're going to start by saying local rs, and that's going to be equal to game::getService. Inside the parentheses, we're going to put replicated storage. Then we're going to say local laser event. and that's going to be equal to rs colon wait for child. Inside here, we're going to put the name of the remote event, which was laser event. Down below, we're going to say laser event dot on server event. We're going to say colon connect, and then function. Next to function, we're going to put another set of parentheses. Inside these parentheses, we're going to get the player. This is the player who triggered the remote event, so whoever fired the gun. We're going to get the gun itself. We're also going to get the mouse position, which we're storing in mouse POS. And finally, we're going to store the type of shot in effect. So just comparing this to the local script. This right here is where we're passing the gun. This here is going to be the mouse's position, which we're renaming to mouse POS. And this final part here is the type of shot, which we're going to store in effect. This player we get automatically, and like I mentioned before, that's whoever fired the gun. Okay, and just to test to make sure everything is set up correctly, let's go ahead and print off those variables. So we're going to do print, and just print off the variables we have up here. Alright, let's go ahead and test the game and make sure that's working. With the output open, I'm going to fire the gun. And we can see we got the player, so that's me, I fired the gun. There's the name of the gun. There is the mouse's position, those 3 numbers right there, and that's the type of shot. Everything looks good, so let's go ahead and continue with the script. We're going to be using ray casting to detect hits on objects. To start using that, we're going to say local ray origin. So that's going to be the starting point for the ray. That's going to be equal to gun dot handle dot cframe dot p. We also need to give our ray a direction, so let's say local ray direction, and that's going to be equal to, we're going to put this in parentheses, we're going to say mouse POS, the mouse's position, minus gun dot handle dot cframe dot p. Outside the parentheses, we're going to say dot unit, and then we're going to multiply that by 300. Next, we need to define the parameters for the ray. We'll do that by saying local raycast params, and that's going to be equal to raycast params dot new, and then we need to set a couple properties for this. So we'll say raycast params with the lowercase r, and then we're going to say dot filter descendants instances, and that's going to be equal to curly brackets player dot parent. And before I move on, I see I have an underlined word here, which typically indicates an error, and I notice right above it I misspelled it, so let's change this to ray. Lots of misspellings here. There we go. After that, we're going to say raycast params dot filter type, and we're going to say that's equal to enum dot raycast filter type dot blacklist. With these 2 lines together, it's going to consider all objects except for the player as valid objects. So if this ray hits any other object except for the player, it's going to give us a result. So below the filter type, we're going to say local raycast result, and that's going to be equal to workspace colon raycast. Inside here, we're going to put the ray origin. After that will be the ray direction. And finally, we're going to pass the raycast params. Okay, now that we set up the raycast, we're going to check to see if we got any results. So we're going to say if raycast result, then, and for now, let's just go ahead and print the object that we hit. To do that, we're going to say local hit part, and that's going to be equal to raycast result dot instance. And then to print the object, we'll just say print, and then hit part. Alright, so let's go ahead and run it and make sure that part is working. We'll go ahead and open up the output to check for any errors. Let's go ahead and equip our gun now. Okay, let's just go ahead and start by firing at the wall. Okay, so we have an error, so let's go ahead and check this out. Okay, and right here I forgot the S. Let's go ahead and try this again. As you can see, we don't have any beam yet, but whenever our ray collides with another object, it's printing the name of it. Since that part is working, let's go ahead and move on now to actually creating the beam that we can see. To create the beam, we're going to start by saying local beam, and that's going to be equal to instance.new. Inside here, we're going to be creating a part. And for the parent, we're going to store that in the workspace. Now we're just going to define some properties of this part to make it look like a laser beam. To start, let's go ahead and say beam.brickcolor. And that's going to be equal to brickcolor.new. Inside the parentheses, let's choose bright red. Next, we're going to say beam.material. And we're going to set that equal to enum.material.neon. Then we're going to say beam.transparency. And we're going to set that equal to 0.25. Beam.anchored. And that's going to be equal to true. Beam.canCollide. And we're going to set that equal to false. Next, we're going to define the size of the beam. We'll say local distance. And that's going to be equal to gun.handle.cframe.p minus hitPart.position. And then outside the parentheses, we're going to take the magnitude. Next, we'll say beam size, and that's going to be equal to vector3.new. Inside the parentheses, we're going to say 0.3, 0.3, and distance. After that, we're going to say beam.cframe. It's going to be equal to cframe.new. Here, we're going to say gun.handle.cframe.p, and then we're going to put a comma and mouse position. We're going to multiply this by cframe.new. Inside here, we're going to put 0, comma 0, comma, and then we're going to say negative distance divided by 2. Now that we have the beam created, we're going to check to see if we hit a humanoid. So we'll say local humanoid, and that's going to be equal to hitPart.parent, find first child. Inside here, we're looking for a humanoid. If we don't find the humanoid, so if not humanoid, then we're going to try checking one other spot. So we're going to say humanoid is equal to hitPart.parent, and then from there, we're also going to check for the humanoid. Since humanoid models could be set up differently, that's why we're checking in two different spots. If we find a humanoid, then what we're going to do is we're going to check to see how far away that humanoid is. So we'll say local, and we'll just say object distance. And that's going to be equal to player.character.humanoid.position minus humanoid, so that's the other object, .rootPart.position. And then outside the parentheses, we're going to put .magnitude. This is going to give us the distance to the object. If that distance is less than 100, then we're going to define the damage. So that's going to be local damage amount. And that's going to be equal to 100. So that's the max damage we could do to the player, minus math.floor. So we're rounding the distance divided by 10. And then we're going to multiply that by 10. And for now, just to see what's happening, let's go ahead and print that damage amount. Alright, so let's go ahead and hit this robot here. So you can see at this distance, it would have been an instant kill. I would have done 100 points of damage. Let's try shooting one a little bit farther away. And you can see here the beams are staying, but we're going to clean that up in a little bit. Okay, so I'm a little farther away. From that distance, I would have done 80. And from farther away, it does 60 damage. So you can see the farther away I get, I'm going to do less damage, and if I'm closer, then I'm going to do more damage. Alright, so now that we can see how the damage system is working, let's go ahead and continue. Now that we're back in the script, I see that I used this distance rather than this one we created down here. So I'm just going to change that real quick. There we go. The reason it still worked with this one is because it's calculated in a similar way, but we just want to change it here so that we're consistent. Okay, so now to actually damage the humanoid, what we're going to do is say humanoid, colon, and take damage. Inside the parentheses, we're going to put the damage amount we calculated, so we'll just say damage amount. And there we go. To get rid of the beams after we shoot them, we're going to use the debris service. So I'm going to put this above the second end. So from the bottom, there should be 1, 2, and then I'm going to be writing right here. So that's going to say game, colon, get service. Inside here, we're going to put debris. We're going to say colon, add item. What we want to get rid of is the beam, and we want to get rid of it after 0.1 seconds. Alright, so let's go and check this out now. So you can see after I shoot, the beams go away. And now when I shoot the robots, they actually take damage. Alright, so let's go ahead and continue and finish this up. So what we want to do next, now that we have our damage shot, is create our heal shot. To do that, it's actually pretty easy. What you want to do is insert another gun inside the starter pack that you're going to use for your healing gun. Once you do that, you're going to add the same local script that you did for the first one. So once you finish the first one, you can just highlight it, press Ctrl+C to copy it, right-click on the new one, and then press Paste Into. Once you open that script on the new gun, all you're going to do is change damage to heal. Once you do that, we're going to be making a few changes to the server script. First, right here, we want to change the color depending on what type of shot we're going to shoot. So here I'm going to say if effect is equal to heal. Then what we're going to do, and I need to make sure I have a double equal sign. Is we're going to change that color to green. Let's go ahead and choose lime green. And then we're going to say else if effect is equal to damage. Then, and here we're just going to use our regular red. There we go. So depending on what type of shot it is, either heal or damage, it's going to be either green or red. And finally, down here under the damage section, we need to change the damage depending on what type of shot. So we're going to say if effect is equal to heal. Then what we're going to do is we're going to say if humanoid dot health plus damage amount, if that's less than or equal to 100, then we're going to say humanoid, colon, take damage. And inside here, we're going to say negative damage amount. So by default, when we use take damage, it's going to subtract whatever amount this is. So by using a negative damage amount, we're actually going to be adding it. The line above it is checking the humanoid's health with the amount that we want to heal the player, and it's making sure that's less than or equal to 100. The reason we're doing that is we don't want to give the humanoid more than 100 points of health. So if we do see that that is not true, then we're going to add an else statement. And here we're just going to say humanoid dot health is equal to 100. So once again, we don't want to give the humanoid more than 100 health. So if it's less than 100, once we add that damage amount, then we're going to give them that damage amount. Otherwise, if it's going to be over 100, then we'll just set it equal to 100. To add back in that damage amount, we're going to add an else if to this statement right here. So we're going to say else if effect is equal to damage. Then we're just going to move this line right here inside the else if statement. So just to recap the section right here, we're checking for two different types of shots. It's either going to be a healing shot or a damage shot. If it's a healing shot, then we want to make sure that that heal is not going to go over 100. If it does, we're going to give them only 100 health. Otherwise, we'll give them that damage amount. If our shot is a damage, then we're going to deal them that damage. The healing amount is going to work the same way as the damage. The closer to the player you are, you're going to give them more health. If you're farther away, then it's going to be less health. Alright, so let's go and check everything together and make sure it's working. Okay, so this is my damage shot. We can see that it's doing damage to the robots. And then my second weapon is the heal. We can see that I have a green beam instead of a red beam. Let me go ahead and damage one of these robots, and then I'm going to shoot them with my healing gun. And we can see it regenerates their health. If I get farther away with my healing shot, we can see it doesn't heal as quickly. And the same for the damage shot. If I'm farther away, then it's going to do less damage. Okay, and the final thing we need to do is add some sound to our gun. To do that, I'm just going to use an audio file from the toolbox. From the drop-down, select audio. Here, go ahead and search for whatever sound you want to. I'm going to try a laser. You can go ahead and try some of them to see what they sound like. Once you find one that you like, you're going to select your gun, and then select the sound. I would recommend choosing one that's about 1 second. So let's go ahead and use this one right here. Once you add the sound into your gun, you're going to rename it. So right-click, press rename, and then rename it to sound. Once you do that, on the local script, you're going to add this line right here. You're going to say tool.sound, and play. Alright, so that's going to be it for this tutorial. If you have anything else you want to see with this laser gun, just let me know. I hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned for the next one.